Today on Shattered, the podcast, we're going to talk about suicide, and we're going to do it in such a way that I want to help you understand what it feels like to survive a suicide attempt, to be a person that has had somebody that you love, somebody that you've mentored take their own life, and as a parent, what it feels like when your child tries to take their life. All that and more coming up on the show today. Welcome to Shattered, the podcast. This is a podcast where we discuss mental illness. It's by a sufferer, for sufferers, and for the people that are looking to understand what it's like to live with mental illness. G'day and welcome once again to Shattered, the podcast. I am Mark. It is a sad fact that in the lead up to Christmas, suicide rates spike across the board in all categories and all different population demographics. Suicide is, for some reason at Christmas, something that a lot more people consider doing. And my posts, and I have a bit of a confession for you. My posts, my show, was designed to help you understand what it's like to live with various mental illness symptoms. And I think in some ways I haven't done a great job of that. In my mind, I'm always competing with this clinical side, this side of me that was trained as a social educator working with people with disabilities, trying to understand the why of behavior. And I've not really done a great job of letting you know how it feels. And in the lead up to Christmas, we're going to do 4 shows leading up to Christmas that are going to talk about suicide in some way, shape or form. And I think that's important because suicide prevention is best. So let's talk about the first time that suicide really impacted my life was the day that I tried to take my own life. And consider this a trigger warning. I don't want to upset people, but I want to be honest. I want you to know what I was going through at the time. Now, it's important to note that grief played a part in my suicide attempt. It happened the week I found out that my grandfather had died peacefully in his sleep. But for me, I was just alone. I was tired. I was disconnected. And I felt that I was hurting my immediate family, my kids and my wife, that I was actually hurting them, causing them pain. I figured that they would be better off if I was not alive. It's a hard thing to think about, the fact that I chose a way out to so much suffering for the people close to me. And partly the reason for that is that I did not understand the impact that suicide has around you. And it wasn't until a guy that I considered to be a really good friend, somebody that I loved, not in a romantic sense or anything like that, but just he was a guy that had worked for me. He had how he came to work at the radio station was quite funny. He only ever worked as a volunteer, but he showed up at everything. And I tried to go out of my way to notice the outliers, the people that are there but not there. If I'm speaking at a school, I'm always speaking to that kid that's distracted, or I'm talking to that kid, that person that doesn't look like they're listening or cares. I target the conversation at them. And when I was at the station, I was in a leadership role, and this guy just kept showing up. And I asked him once, I said, Daniel, do you want to come in the studio and go on air. I was being paid. I was a professional at the time, but it was a community station and we were expected to build the volunteer base. And it was the funniest reaction I've ever had to inviting somebody to come on air, because I said, do you want to come on air and host with us? And he kind of did one of these. He went, no. You could tell that he really wanted to. In the end, he became a valued colleague. He ended up doing things that he never thought he'd be able to do, hosting his own show, went to Africa and helped some Africans start up a little local station to support their community. He was incredible. But he moved away, and he moved away to a situation that none of us were happy about. We knew that we guessed that he was isolating himself, but we figured that he loved the girl that he'd moved up there with, and he'd found true love, and he was happy. Of course he wasn't. He ended up taking his own life. It was devastating in the extreme to find out that somebody that you cared for, somebody that you thought had endless, limitless potential, that you thought had limitless courage. This guy once, he told me about a trip he took to Israel. And I thought, oh, okay, cool. You went to Israel. That's groovy. He said, no, just one day he woke up and he thought, I want to go celebrate the Passover in Israel. So he just packed up and went. Just got a plane ticket, flew over there, didn't know anybody, got off the plane, basically said to the first person he bumped into, I'm a stranger in town and I want to celebrate Passover with someone. And in the end, it was the most incredible experience of his life. And to hear him talk about it, he just hooked up with this incredible bunch of people. They ended up giving him one of the horns that they blow. It was just an amazing experience. And it spoke to this guy's courage. And when I found out that he had killed himself, my first emotion was guilt. How come I didn't know that this person that I loved, this person that I cared about, didn't realize that I would have done anything in the world to help him? When I found out, I was on a cruise with my family in the Pacific, and we were having a wonderful time. And I somehow got internet, and somehow a phone call came through, and it was telling me that this guy had taken his own life. If he had have known that I would have gotten off the boat in one of the little countries we went to and would have caught a plane to go see him, if I had been in Australia, he was in Cairns. It was kind of like driving from Miami to New York, for other people to understand that kind of distance. I would have dropped everything and gone to help him if he had have told me that he was going to take his own life. That pain is never going to go away. That guilt is never going to go away. And that's the second thing that I learned about suicide, is that when you take your own life, you're not ending the pain. Sure, you're ending your individual pain, but you are creating vast amounts of pain for the people that are left behind that will always feel guilt and shame. And that's what I feel for Daniel. It's hard to remember the good times. It's hard to talk about him going to Israel like that. It's hard to talk about him going to Africa, because this guy had unlimited potential and ability. He was smarter than me. He was more clever than me. He was better at networking than me. He had every strength in the world that I didn't have. And now he's gone. And I can never make up for those moments that he had, those minutes before he took his own life, because I've been there. Those minutes where you just feel so desperately alone. You feel like you have no potential, no hope, nothing to look forward to. And you think that anything's got to be better than the pain that you're feeling right now. I promised you at the beginning of this show that I was going to talk about my child's suicide. And again, I've got to be honest with you. I can't do that today. Again, the same feelings of guilt. The feelings that maybe my PTSD, my suffering, that she's lived with for her whole life, contributed to her suicide attempt. You are not alone. Doesn't take guts or courage to kill yourself. It takes guts to stay. Be courageous. Ask for help. Stay another day. Next time, I will try to talk about my daughter's suicide attempt. Hey, if you like what we're doing, if you want to support us in our work, real easy, subscribe, hit the buttons on your social medias, subscribe, share, like, all those things. I invite you to join us, be part of our conversation. And above all else, I look forward to speaking to you next week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to Shattered, the podcast. I'd like to thank our producer, Meredith Brosnan, our executive producer, Torian Lau, and the band Adelaide for allowing us to use their song as our theme. Go to shatteredthepodcast.com for more information.